So before this entire lockdown thing happened, I was working at a pretty easy, mindless job. All I was doing was cleaning up stuff in a warehouse, and it was mindless enough to where I could think about pretty much anything. And one thing that my mind got stuck on all those months ago, before I ended up losing that job, was this idea I call the compact verse. And the essential idea for this compact verse is compacting every form of fiction that at least I personally know about or know enough about to put in a giant crossover universe is, well, they're all put together in one universe. Now, clearly, on paper, just without thinking about it too hard, it doesn't work at all. There are going to be way too many clashing storylines that just kind of don't add up. Well, I guess that could be part of the fun developing this, and even looking more into it, it really doesn't work. For the most part. There are certain parts of it that mesh together really easily, and we can go into those a little bit later in this video. However, right now, I'm going to go over what the basic rules I came up with for this was. And, because to create something as ridiculous as this, I had to figure out a good rule set keep it to keep it somewhat under control, because it's going to be completely chaotic. And I mean chaos everywhere. And that's going to be a pretty prevalent part in the early parts of this timeline. And of course, I think for right now, at least the first part of this video, we will be focusing on what the planet Earth would be like, what that compacted Earth is. It is probably the single worst place to live in this entire universe, at first anyways. Now, the rules for this will be for one planet Earth from one fictional story and another to mesh together, they'd have to have the same basic geographical shape to it, and like that way, like when they combine into one, it doesn't look completely crazy. For an example, the Dragon Ball Z Earth, that Earth is going to be its own separate planet because geographically, it looks nothing like the Earth of Marvel and DC and My Hero. Speaking of which, those three, Marvel, DC, and My Hero, are all going to be in the same planet Earth, the compact Earth. On top of that, there are going to be a lot of other things, smaller forms of media, like Danny Phantom, Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10, of course, Transformers. They might crash land on that planet at some point, and we'll have them in that world. And pretty much anything else you can think of. Those are just a few random things that came to my mind at this very moment. And oh yeah, Bleach as well. The anime Bleach. Imagine that with all these heroes and everything meshing together. And another thing for like the various parts of the different, like the entire universe itself is extremely massive in real life, for instance. So there's plenty of room for all the things that are not happening on the compacted Earth to just exist. Like Dragon Ball Z, for example. In fact, Frieza has plenty of room in a universe to just go around and take over different planets and such. The Green Lantern Corps, they're everywhere already, and all the other Lantern Corps are wherever they would be. And Star Wars, the Star Wars galaxy itself, it's going to be its own galaxy. Nothing is really going to change with that. It's pretty much the exact same, except maybe they'll have a Green Lantern in there somewhere. And hey, that could be possible. Might talk about that in a later video. On top of that, the Warhammer 40k galaxy, I mean, my knowledge of that lore is very, very minimal. Well, a little bit more than minimal, probably. Because I've watched a lot of lore videos about it. I know the basics at the very least. And I could see that becoming the very, very distant future of the galaxy that the compact Earth would be in. Like, I think it would make sense for how I imagined it going, but for now, we're at least going to just say it's its own entire galaxy. And other things in the universe, there are three different type of parasitic-like uh, fleshy creatures that go around and basically consume worlds, being the Zerg, the Tyranids, and the Flood. Couldn't think of the name for a moment. Whoops. But yeah, those three, they are probably in this universe will inevitably become one massive, overly powered entity. Then other things, bringing me back to that Star Wars galaxy, there is the Yuzhan Vong that came from a different galaxy that got completely destroyed by pretty much AI, like robots and stuff like that. And there is one thing from another sci-fi story called Mass Effect with the Reapers. They literally devour life and kind of just integrate them into themselves, from my knowledge of that lore, which is also pretty minimal. I haven't played those games. My dad did, though, and I got to watch a little bit of that. But I can imagine maybe the Reapers are what wiped out the entire galaxy of the Yuuzhan Vong. Maybe they tie into that. Maybe Brainiac from DC ties into that. You go into what kind of crazy things Brainiac could get. So who knows? Maybe he'd like absorb all the Reapers and such, and bring them into himself, become more powerful. That would actually just be terrifying. However, for right now, I'm going to focus a bit more on what the Earth itself would look like. I kind of see its timeline going in about three main parts, like the very beginning, which will kind of cover when mutants start popping up in people's powers, like how it is in My Hero. They say one guy was born and he was glowing, and how mutants started popping up from Marvel. And I know DC's heroes come up more in the modern-ish era, so we'll kind of put that off for a while. And at in the first part of the storyline, that obviously all the people come up with powers, and the world would start having trouble dealing with them. This would probably be, I guess, around World War II era, or like right after it. Because no Wolverine is already going to exist. And he definitely played a pretty decent role in the very beginnings. And so would the X-Men, I guess. They'd probably be... In fact, the X-Men might just be the first hero organization this world would see. Yeah, I can see that. Why not? First hero organization Compact Earth sees is the X-Men. And later on, of course, there will be more hero organizations popping up, but then also villainous organizations, like Hydra, for example. They'll actually probably be the first villain organization, because they date back to the World War II era with Captain America and everything like that. He won't really play much part after that war, for obvious cold reasons. Should have worn a jacket. But anyways, after that, more hero organizations and villain organizations would likely be popping up. And that would have to happen to avoid all the chaos that would ensue with all these different people having powers and such. But on top of this, the Shinigami from like Bleach, I don't think they would have anything to do with hero organizations. They don't really deal with that. They deal with people dying and killing hollows. That being said, I feel like Danny Phantom would probably end up fighting a hollow at some point. Then other ghosts will just be helping out with them. So maybe a crossover between Danny Phantom and Bleach. Or maybe Bleach characters show Danny Phantom what real power looks like. Unless, of course, Danny is super strong. I haven't gotten to that power scaling. It's been a while since I've seen that show. Of course, after a while, though, I feel like this compact Earth would end up going into somewhat of a civil war against itself. Like there are multiple different countries and multiple different factions, even within different countries. So I feel like maybe the heroes and villains would end up having to fight each other, and that could lead the entire compacted Earth into one massive war. And probably the Fourth World War. And that would be way more devastating. Oh wait, no, that would be World War III. My bad. I forgot that hasn't happened yet. Lol. So yeah, World War III would basically just be heroes versus villains in an all-out war, complete chaos everywhere for real this time. and eventually they'd have to stop because there's too much chaos, too much bloodshed, and I feel like both sides would just be like, you know what, ceasefire. I don't feel like any one side would win, or maybe they would. I'd have to go into way more detail and truly figure out exactly what would happen. But for now, we'll just say it's probably going to be a ceasefire. Now, before I get into what would happen after this, I got to remind myself here of the other hero organizations that would be popping up before this World War III thing would happen. And that does also bring me into my other point. I think My Hero Academia actually has like the best, most realistic way for how people would react to powers and such, being hero organizations and then villain organizations. It just makes sense. And I think the top hero organization that's above all the others would probably be the Justice League since they are in space. And then the one right below them would probably be the Avengers, or the Avengers might just be at the same level as them, just on Earth in a certain area. So, of course, they'd be better suited for taking care of that one area that they're in whenever they're all together in that one spot at the Avengers Tower. But after all the craziness of the war would ensue, and their ceasefire pretty much causes peace, they might end up dealing with either an extraterrestrial threat or just lower problems going on with the planet itself. Just dealing with like lesser issues other than war. Or who knows, maybe the ceasefire is caused by an extraterrestrial threat. Like, who knows, maybe Brainiac comes in with the Reapers and is like, hey, I'm going to devour you all and integrate all of you into me. Or maybe it's Darkseid deciding he wants to enslave everyone again. Or try to again. Or I guess this would be his first time for the Compact Verse. But yeah, after stuff like that could happen, I feel like eventually the entire planet would go into a one world order sort of thing, and eventually they will just become just one faction. Because after a while, they will deal with a bunch of extraterrestrial threats, being Darkseid, Brainiac, and Galactus as well, and potentially a bunch of other things, like the Skrulls from Marvel. And at that point, this would bring us into what the third part of the timeline is, where like the middle one is the wars and everything that they go through, which would be around the modern era type of thing. And at the very beginning of the third part of the timeline is once everyone is in one world order, they can start working on their technology even more. Now, I feel like the organization SHIELD would still be pretty prevalent at this point, and if Hydra still exists, which it likely would, they're kind of a cockroach. They might just join together with SHIELD. That might just be different parts of that military for Earth itself. And on top of that, the G.I. Joe, yeah, they're in this verse, of course. They're probably going to be one of the greatest strike squads of the planet itself, assuming all of them survived that war that happened before. I'm sure Snake Eyes would have. He's kind of a ninja G. Speaking of ninjas, Ninja Gaiden, Ryu Hayabusa. There's one guy cutting through hell with the Doomslayer in a later in the future part of the timeline. Because yeah, Doomslayer, Doom Eternal, Doom 2016, all the Doom games, they're going to be canon for this. It's too cool to not put in. And bringing me to Doom, I feel like messing with Argent Energy, which is what they are using in the Doom lore, for the power of the weapons and technology and everything, I feel like that could potentially be one of the earlier things people go through, like humanity itself. And dealing with Argent Energy is them trying to jump forward in time with their technology, and it kind of works, but then they have to start fighting demons, and the demons are going to be way easier to deal with. But obviously, the Doomslayer is still going to become a thing because he's too cool not to put in. Like, let's face it, this angry dude is just the Kratos of a futuristic era. So yeah, he'd become a thing. And after a while, they will probably stop using Argent Energy because it is just too dangerous. People are still dying, even though Superman is one-shotting these things. Saitama probably would be too, because why not? One Punch Man is going to be in here as well, unless their planet Earth is completely different geographically from the other Earths that we put into the compact Earth. If it is, I'll look into that later, try and figure it out. But for now, he's in that same planet. But then after a while, they will start working on other technologies, and I feel like this would bring in the Mass Effect universe, or perhaps it actually no. First, it would be Halo. Halo would come in first. Humanity would start colonizing different planets in their little galaxy, and then the Covenant and the Flood. They'll have to start dealing with all of that. Halo stuff would begin happening. Master Chief would become a thing, of course. But and then we'll just add in heroes. Like hero organizations would probably mostly stay on the planet Earth and maybe go into other planets. They've become more of a planet defense force at some point. Maybe some of them would become people that go in and attack like other enemies when the Covenant starts invading. Yeah, the Covenant has a lot less chance of beating humanity when they have Superman, Saitama, and the Doomslayer. Like the Doomslayer is like a more powerful Master Chief. If you disagree with that, I can understand. You probably don't know as much about the Slayer as I do. I mean, he literally was tearing through hell for 1,000 years. I'm pretty sure that's how the lore goes. And I think that was before he became a super soldier, thanks to the Seraphim. So yeah, Slayer kind of swole. Not like Superman swole. He's nowhere near that, obviously, but he's pretty swole. So after a while, humanity will end up defeating the Covenant, of course. Then probably the Mass Effect timeline might be what comes next, and perhaps on top of that, they start also having dealings with people from Star Trek, Vulcans, and then the Klingons and such. We're just going to kind of mesh all of that part in together, and now there's all these other races that they're finding in space. In this one Milky Way galaxy. I'm pretty sure it's all in the Milky Way galaxy. Yeah, it definitely is. So yeah, they start having all of these alliances, and then probably after a while, the Milky Way galaxy will become pretty united. Then the Reapers, of course, will become a problem. Brainiac will might as well just be leading the Reapers, because why not? It's Brainiac, of course he's going to do that. Oh, and that Milky Way galaxy would, of course, know they're coming, because they have the Green Lantern Corps on their side. Yeah, the Green Lantern Corps is a whole other topic to go into a bit later. I'm definitely going to make a video about the very variety of things that can happen with the Green Lantern Corps in a compacted universe. Because there's almost endless possibilities. But that's pretty much the overview of how I imagine the compact verse. Just throwing in little ideas on things that could happen in it. And of course, this is completely ridiculous. It really doesn't work, but hey, it is kind of fun, at least to me. If you like it too, you can subscribe if you want. You don't have to though, I don't know. Like, if this goes well enough, I will definitely be making more videos about it, 100%. I might still make the one about the Green Lantern Corps. That one is just, sounds like too much fun to just rant about in front of a computer screen. Anyways, guys, if you like this, yeah, definitely subscribe if you would like. I will probably make another video. Maybe two. The next two I might have up could be one about the Green Lantern rings, as I have said multiple times, and maybe one about all the fighting tournaments, like the martial art tournaments for all the different fighting games, because they're in this universe too. So I think that will be it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.